So I'm going to explain angular momentum to you today, and that's a simple equation, L equals R times mv. The stuff you're going to need for this experiment is a pen and a Sharpie, some tack clay, a little bit of weight, which we're using as dimes, and then a CD, which will be your surface area. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to take this pen, and I already put some tack clay on top of it, and I'm going to balance it on the tip, which just standing by itself, it doesn't do. What you're going to do is I'm going to take this CD, put it right on this tack tape. When I spin this, it will balance right on the tip. That's angular momentum. Things we can change in this equation is if we change the velocity, it's harder to balance. Whereas when it's going faster, balance is easier. The next thing we can change is mass. And I'm gonna do that by sticking more tack clay on the CD. And then for weight, I'm gonna add 6 nickels to see how that affects the CD when it spins. So I added the weight to the CD. Now I'm gonna put the pen back in, right in the middle, because otherwise it will be off balance. And we don't want that. Now let's see how the weight affects angular momentum. So the nickels were a little too heavy, so I decided to use dimes. So as you can see, the weight, if it's all equally distributed, doesn't affect very much. Now let's change the radius. So we're going to take this weight and put it farther out and see what it does. You can see since the weight is farther out, it allows the CD to spin easier because the weight's distributed farther out. You're increasing the angular velocity when the weight is further out, or the radius of the weight is larger. Whereas when it was closer, it's harder for the top to spin. So that's why it struggles more when it was spinning. Another thing you could do to change a factor is take the pen and replace it with a Sharpie, a bigger center to balance on. And see, this, it's not as small as a point of a pen, but it's a little bit bigger of a mass, so that's why it's spinning a little bit slower. An example of angular momentum in everyday life. The frisbee spins and stays flat in the air. This is an example of angular momentum used by a ballerina called a pirouette. Just as a final thought, this has all the mass on the outside, which makes it go a lot further than this one, where the mass is generally in the center and doesn't fly as easy. I hope you enjoyed this video on angular momentum, and have a great day.